You know what I like about David Benavidez? It's that although he's fairly young and a part of this new generation of fighters, he carries himself like one of those traditional old school fighters from the 80s and 90s. Nowadays, everybody says they want the smoke, but he walks it like he talks it and is ready to take on all comers. I mean, given his reputation so far, I might even go as far as to say that the presence of David Benavidez is that of fighters in more recent eras like Prime Triple G or maybe even Antonio Margarito. But we all know how that story goes. The whole point is this Mexican monster isn't just some chupacabra. Now, a lot of fight fans weren't really high on some of the Benavidez camp's antics and trash talk during the build-up for his fight with Caleb Plant, and I can understand that. But what I think a lot of people miss is the fact that David has been making himself very marketable as of late and is just showing more of his personality given his opportunity on the bigger stage. Some say he's emotional and maybe even undisciplined, but to be honest, I think he's just being himself out there. And in his fight with Caleb Plant, he showed that he ain't this tit for tat, coming out all guns blazing like some ticking time bomb stereotype. And if you really pay attention to his fights, you would already know that. Now, I for one have always felt, even with his sledgehammer for fists, that Benavidez's skills are underrated and his in-ring IQ gets overlooked by many. A perception of most performances present him like some checker player, but he was very open to the chess match with Plant. He's always been a crafty guy. He displayed solid defense when against the ropes and on his back foot, wasn't quick to shy away from his guard, showed various feints and waist movement, good counters, and although he tends to stand up straight a lot because of his height, he's actually very quick on his feet. The speed in his combinations speak for itself. He baited Plant in multiple times with his jab and leads, and even though he may get a little anxious or reckless at times, he still shows enough restraint not to overcommit. I mean, cause shout out to Caleb Plant, man. After all the bad blood and beef leading up to the fight, they both let it be known that they definitely earned each other's respect, and Plant ain't no pussy like some people thought he was. Remember, Caleb Plant fought Canelo. He was racking up some of them rounds in that fight as well, so it's evident that he's no easy task. He hung in there with David, even when things started to get bad in the second half. I mean, dude basically dictated most of the first half of the fight, even though he had a little help from this Oscar-proud Nicky Banks-looking motherfucker here. But after that sixth round, things changed drastically, and we saw Benavidez capitalize on it all. Now, he might not have gotten a knockout, but to get the unanimous decision over the slicker boxer shows that David Benavidez is far from one-dimensional. I've never seen someone so calm on his path for destruction, all while maintaining his rhythm. It's almost like Benavidez has to tell himself, I'm just going to take my time like Mike, because either way, sooner or later, I'ma get him. Whether it be Mike Tyson, the guy who gave him that nickname, the Mexican Monster, or the actual monster of a man, Michael Myers, which would explain why Plant was cut the fuck up. Moving forward though, here's where things get really interesting. So the word is, David Benavidez's next opponent will be Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. For those of you who don't know who that is, you may remember him from Canelo's infamous payday moment. Yeah, that guy. Now, regardless who you would have winning a Benavidez versus Andrade matchup, this is something to feel real good about, which goes back to what I said about Benavidez wanting all the smoke. Boo Boo might not be well known to the casuals, but he's definitely a player around that division, whether people believe in him or not. He's undefeated, and just like David, he's been calling Canelo's name for a while now. The big question here is, would the winner of that fight be ready? Is David Benavidez really ready for Canelo Alvarez? Is Boo Boo Andrade ready for Canelo? Hell, is Canelo ready for them boys? Because we know, them boys, they hungry. Are they ready for each other? Because at this point, it's becoming inevitable. The boxing world should be pushing for any of these fights so bad, especially all the Latino and Mexican fans, because on paper, Canelo versus Benavidez has potential to be a marquee Mexican matchup, like one of the biggest. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking Julio Cesar Chavez versus Oscar De La Hoya, Oscar versus Fernando Vargas, an atmosphere of that magnitude as far as promotion and hype is concerned. Probably wouldn't be an Antonio Barrera versus Morales or Marquez versus Vasquez, but shit, you never know, dog. And yeah, I know David is a Mexican-American from Texas, and Canelo is the Mexican native from Jalisco, but at the end of the day, everyone's in the same house. ¿Entiendes? Yeah, you get it. On the other hand, though, Canelo versus Andrade would not only give a fresh face like Boo Boo some notoriety, especially in the event that he would most likely be coming off a win against our Mexican monster, but we would also see somewhat of a dark horse emerge in that weight class, and at the same time, stop the bleeding on all this Canelo won't fight black fighters speculation, at least for the time being. Look, I wouldn't mind the Canelo versus Andrade bout at all, and most believe that Canelo will be targeting the rematch with Bivol after Canelo's upcoming fight on May 6th with John Ryder. But me personally, I say fuck all that shit, man. Canelo versus Benavidez is where it's at. That's the one. Period, my boy. Some fans say Canelo's scared of him. Others say Benavidez shows many flaws that Canelo can exploit. I say you're only as good as your last performance. And given the fact that Canelo got Caleb Plant up out of there as to where Benavidez won by decision, most would have Canelo as the favorite, and for very good reason. Shit, Canelo was proven and is the reigning face of boxing. But he did get smoked by Demetrius Bivol, then went on to pick apart an old washed up version of Triple G in their trilogy fight. So to me, the verdict is still out. And if this fight does end up being made, and if the two fighters do end up making it happen, who do you have as the favorite? Who do you have winning and why? See, cause I don't believe in triangle theories always work in the sport of boxing, dog. The truth is, anything can happen in that ring at any given moment. But if that's the case, what would Caleb Plant versus Triple G look like? I mean, you gotta ask yourself, what would Benavidez versus Triple G or Bivol look like? And do we even care? I say that to say, stay tuned, boxing world, because them walls closing in. Stay invested, apply pressure, because this would be a sight to see. Pop off.